So all those in the cockpit down the left-hand side, all the buttons, not the knobs, but the knobs and the buttons. A lot of that stuff over there is for autopilot. So that's all your autopilot settings. But there's a bunch of different ways that have the autopilot go. Okay, so in these planes, there's a couple of different ways that you can have it do the auto things that the autopilot will control. So you have a magenta line. You have a point A and a point B. So you could put it in nav mode, nav mode, and it would follow that pink line. But the problem is that we're so far off of that magenta line now that if you turn nav mode and you turn the autopilot, it's going to want to get you back on that magenta line. So your plane's going to take a hard left, because if you look at the center of your PFD, your primary flight display, see how the purple line is like off to your left? The middle part of the purple line is off to the left. That means that the straight line from A to B would be to go to your left, but we don't really want to do that and waste time, right? So the other mode that you can use is heading mode. You can just tell it to follow a heading, right? So if you're pointed right at get your plane pointed right at the little mark of where we're going, turn just a little bit to the left to where the nose of the plane is pointed straight at that marker that says 130 nautical miles. Yeah, yep. And then once you've done that, on the left side of the primary display, there's a knob. There's a knob that has HDG, stands for heading. You see that knob? Okay. If you push the button, it will automatically set the little heading bug right to where the heading of your plane is. So if you push that, then you should see the little blue. Yeah, push it, click it with your mouse. So what happens is when you push that button, it puts a little heading mark on that little compass, the compass rose. You see that? Now, when you turn the knob, that same knob that you just clicked, when you turn it to the left or to the right, that little blue thing is going to move left or right. Yep, you see it? Yep. Now turn that to where it's lined perfectly up with the little purple arrow thing that you have. Okay. All right. Now, if you hit autopilot, the AP button and the right below that heading knob, there's all those buttons, and one of them says AP. Just right directly below the heading knob. So now if you turn that, or if you that's how you turn the autopilot on. Now below that autopilot, there's a heading button. Right, one button below autopilot is heading. So you click that button, and that's telling the autopilot to hold the heading that you have put in. Okay, so the autopilot, if the autopilot is on, it should hold that heading that you put in. And you'll know if it's on because just below where I showed you, where it shows your destination and your arrival, there's some green stuff, some green letters and stuff there. So it should say HDG, tells you you're in heading mode. See that at the top of the Garmin? Yeah, so yeah, the primary display below where where we left from and where it says custom. Yeah, so the HDG tells you that you're in heading mode. AP tells you that the autopilot is on. Okay, so it should be following that heading. So now it won't automatically turn right. And if you try to turn your turn your yoke to the right or the left, it's gonna fight you because the autopilot is controlling. It's trying to hold that heading. Okay. Yeah. So your autopilot is turned on, and you've told it follow this heading. Now, if you also wanted to make sure that the airplane is not going to go up or down, then back to those buttons. Yeah, the ALT button is altitude hold. So if you click that button, Now the plane is holding your altitude and it should be in heading. So up the top, it should say HDG, AP, ALT, and then whatever the altitude is that you clicked and told it to hold. So now at this point, the plane will not go up, the plane will not go down, the plane will not turn left, the plane will not turn right until you change something or you turn the autopilot off, which gives you control back. Does that make sense? Yeah, if you hit that autopilot button, and you should have a button that's probably bound to that. Like for me on my yoke, I have a red button on my yoke, and that's the button that I press that turns the autopilot on and off. That way I don't have to physically get my mouse and fumble around and try to click that little AP button. I have no idea, but it's a good it's a good thing to have set so that you don't have to physically zoom in and click. And if you're in a you're in a rush, something bad's happening, and you're like, I just need to get the autopilot off, like so. At some point, yeah, yep. And if you're in that third person view, if you look at like your trim and stuff, you'll see like your trim is going up and down and stuff because the autopilot is adjusting your trim for you to keep you at that altitude. So like when it's turbulent and stuff, whatever, and the plane's getting tossed around, you'll see that it'll automatically be adjusting that trim up and down and stuff to try to keep the plane level, right? Okay. So now let's say I'm looking at your screen. It looks like you need to turn just a tiny bit to the left to be going straight towards your marker. So that heading knob, the knob that we clicked, if you turn that a couple clicks to the left, and the plane will fly to the left. If you turn that heading knob to the right, the plane will fly to the right. So if you move your mouse around, there'll be like there you go, exactly. So then you just kind of click that a few times, and the little heading bug, the little light blue thing will go to the left, and then the plane should turn to the left, right? So this is how you can fly like with autopilot, but still turn the plane and stuff, but you're not actually using the yoke. You're using the autopilot and you're using the heading knob to change your heading, and then the autopilot's gonna fly that heading. Make sense? You got it? All right. um, right. Now, if you have if you want it to fly the magenta line, you've made a flight plan and you want it to stay right on the purple line, then instead of clicking the button that says heading, not the knob, not clicking on the knob, but actually clicking the heading button, you would push nav, which is one button below the heading button is a NAV. If you click that button, the plane's going to turn hard to the left, gonna try to get you back onto the magenta line. So right now we're not trying to fly nav. We don't want it in nav mode because we are already so far off the magenta line that we just want to fly a heading, right? Again, in this mode, we're using two things, right? We're using the heading and we're using the altitude hold. So if we want to change the heading, we turn the knob like I showed you. Good morning, dear. And now for altitude, below all those buttons in the bottom left hand corner of the Garmin is a knob that says ALT for altitude. But you see the thicker part goes up in the thousands of feet, and the skinnier part goes up in hundreds of feet. Okay, so let's change it go up to 13,000 feet. So you can use the small one because that you don't want to change thousands of feet. You want to change hundreds of feet, right? And we were already at you got it. So get that to where it says 13,000. Okay. So the plane though is like, oh, okay, 13,000, but it has no idea how do you want me to get to 13,000 from where I'm at? Okay, so it's not going to do anything until we tell it how to get there. Okay. So right above the ALT knob, back at all those little buttons where we had, autopilot and heading mode and altitude hold and all that, there's 2 buttons there that we can use to do this. The one that we want is FLC, flight level control. See the flight level control? Okay. So click flight level control. Now just to the right of that button is 2 buttons. One says nose up and one says nose down. And on the speed, see above your speed, now there's a blue number on the top of the speed now too, right? You're basically saying, I want you to climb to 13,100 feet, but I want you to maintain this speed that's set here. Right. So it'll start to climb, but if you're set to a speed like where you're at right now, it can't climb because it can't go any faster. So change that, hit it to where it's set to like 61 instead of 71. So with that nose up and the nose down button. Nose up will go higher, nose down will go lower. So change that to where it's like at 61 or something like that. Okay, so look what the plane's doing. That's okay. It's okay. Just click nose up again. Get this set back to the 60 or whatever. Okay. So what you're telling the plane is, I want you to maintain this amount of knots and climb as steep as you can to get me to 13,100 feet, but don't go below the speed that I'm telling you. But I don't know, honestly, I'm not sure why you're going so slow. Give it some more throttle. Are you like, let's go full? Yeah, give it some throttle here. Because I'm not climbing, but I'm doing like 90 knots. So give it some more throttle. And because we've told it, don't go below a certain speed, and because we're up so high, it can't do it. So now you see how the plane's climbing again? Right, and because we have the autopilot, we put in the altitude we want to go to, which you have 13,100 feet there. We've told it how to get to 13,100 feet. So now it's going to slowly climb until it gets to 13,100 feet. When it gets there, it's going to turn off the flight level change, and it's going to turn the altitude hold back on again. It's an FYI, I can hear Brick on stream, but not Sky. Here's another way to know too. Look at the RPMs.
Yes.
So right now, everything, the plane is keeping its own, it's doing its own thing, right? So if you look at the RPM, slowly move that knob, and you want to try to get the biggest number that you can out of the RPMs, right?
RPM.
So if you move, yeah, which is on this top of the second display. If you turn the autopilot off,
everything will be off? Okay.
Yeah. Yep, because if you click the heading buttons and stuff again, you're basically turning heading mode off, which it looks like you did, because now up at the top it doesn't say heading anymore, it says ROL.
Okay.
It's not the mode that you want to be in the heading mode. You need to turn, at the top, does it say HDG AP at the top of the Garmin?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to twist that little heading knob until the front of the plane is pointed towards our marker of where we're going. Because the little blue mark needs to match up with the purple arrow on your
yes. Okay, yeah.
That's where we're going, right? So,
yeah. Okay. I was a bit nervous.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if we want to descend like from 13,000 to
Yeah.
maybe 8,000.
So then what you want to do is remember the alt knob,
Yeah.
the altimeter knob,
Mm.
where we set it at 13,000. You need to go down and
That
turn that
one.
knob to where it doesn't say 13,100 in blue anymore, and
Okay.
use the bigger part of the
Bigger
knob.
one
It'll go down in thousands. So
is
then take it down to
8,000.
whatever you think a safe altitude is. And
Yes,
again,
it
the
is.
plane's not going to do anything though until we tell it how do you want to get from 13,001 down to 8,000.
Okay.
This time, um, instead of doing the FLC, the flight level control, we're going to use VS, vertical speed.
Vertical.
So right above the flight level control button,
Yes,
there's
vertical
a
speed.
VS button. Okay. And once you click vertical speed, now you have to tell it, okay, well, how fast do you want to go up or down? And so we're going to use those same two buttons where it says nose up and nose down.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to click the nose down
Uh-huh.
until we see negative 500. So click the vertical speed again. Click the VS button again.
Okay. Yeah.
And then once you click the vertical speed, turn it to where it says, yeah, and then use the nose down. And then up there, it'll say negative 100 feet per minute. Click it again. There you go. That's set to negative 500 feet per minute.
Oh, that one, the 700. That one, no.
So you need to go nose up then, right?
Yeah.
So it says 500. See, on the other thing,
Yeah.
it says -7 or whatever, but it's really 700. 6
Okay.
is 600. 6.1 is 610.
Okay. Yes. Yes. I that's how I thought that I saw why decimal point
Yeah, it's
was.
confusing. I don't know why it does that. I don't know why they have it like that. It's confusing.
Yeah. Now it's 500.
Yeah.
Do I
So
need to
now again, the plane is going to descend until it hits 8,000 feet, and then it's going to level off and it's going to hold 8,000 feet. And then at that point, it's going to turn the vertical speed off, and it's going to turn on the altimeter hold. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do I need to reduce or increase the power for that?
I mean, sometimes you will. I mean, if you're already doing 125 knots, you're coming in and and you're starting to decrease, for your airfield. If you tell it to go down by 500 feet, it's going to speed up. The plane's going to speed up, right? Um, but since we were already struggling to do 90 knots, then it probably doesn't matter because by the time we speed up, it's going to do maybe like 100 knots, 110 knots, So you just kind of watch it. You just kind of watch your airspeed over there. And like I said, if it starts getting up to where the yellow part starts at like 130 knots,
Yeah.
then you know that you need to turn your throttle down just a little bit. And then if it's still going up, then you need to turn your throttle down a little bit more. Or if it starts dropping, if you turned it down too much, then you need to adjust a little more throttle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So now another thing to note too is that, so we moved the little magenta, the little turquoise blue crown thing. We moved that to perfectly line up with the top of the purple arrow, but that doesn't take into consideration wind.
Okay.
So like if you're looking out the front of the plane, it looks like technically we still need to go a little bit more left because I'm guessing the wind is blowing from our left to our right. Still a little bit to the right though, right?
Yeah, a little bit right.
Now,
Yes.
now if you think about it, in 75 miles, we're going to be off by quite a bit to the right.
Yes.
It looks like a tiny little bit right now, but if you multiply that every nautical mile that we go, you're going to be further away and further away, further away.
Yeah.
So you might want to go in and turn that heading knob maybe another click or two to the left to make up for the wind pushing us to the right.
Okay. So little bit 1 degree.
Yep. Now, if we were in nav mode, the airplane would automatically adjust that. But because we're flying heading mode, again, it's not smart about it. You told me to go to this heading. I'm flying that heading. Well, so now just for giggles, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here, let's change it from heading mode, turn it into nav mode.
Nav mode. Okay, yeah, because we are close to line, so
Yeah,
let's go
just
back.
because I want you to see how it's gonna work. Like I
Yeah,
said, we can tell that the magenta line is to our left
yeah.
by quite a bit. But if
Oh,
you just
yes.
push NAV over there on the left-hand buttons, the plane's going to get us onto that magenta line. And I
Yeah.
just want you to kind of see that, it's going to, and it's fine. Don't freak out. It's going to make a left turn until it gets to about like a 45-degree angle from that magenta line. And then it's going to start correcting us back on course again so that your plane is flying right on top of the magenta line,
Okay.
the magenta line track,
So
without you having to do anything.
so if we put the navigation, still we need to change the what is called altitude and power, right?
Nope, because we never changed. Well, so remember, it's still decelerating. Remember, we're at what, 8,900. So you never told it not to keep going to 8,000. We just said we don't want to go heading mode anymore. We want to go nav mode.
Okay.
So we didn't change any of that. The plane is still, the plane is still gonna go down to the 8,000 feet that we told it to, and then it's gonna stop descending at that point.
So the other parameter it will follow. I mean, regardless we change
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, because we never turned it off. Now, if we didn't want it to do that anymore, then we would have to click that vertical speed button and tell it to stop descending to 8,000 feet. But we don't want to do that. We want it to be at 8,000 feet, right?
Yes.
So we're just going to leave that there. And then, like I said, once you get to 8,000 feet, or when you get within like a couple hundred feet of it, it's going to turn vertical speed off, and then it'll level out right at, or pretty close to right at the 8,000 feet.
So it's probably on the.
And then we'll turn the altimeter hold on, and then it should keep you at 8,000 feet. Okay, see how the plane's starting to turn back right again?
Yes, on
Look at the magenta line.
Yeah. Yeah, almost in the middle of the magenta line. So nice. Thanks. Especially it's good for when doing sightseeing a long
Yeah, long trips, and
trips.
it's handy if you got to get up and go get a drink or use the bathroom, or if you're talking to chat. You know what I mean? You're talking to somebody in chat about something. It's nice to just know that your plane's not gonna drop out of the sky or start turning some weird direction.
We just can change something like a visual things, and then it will not distract.
Right.
Like.
So those are some of the modes that you can use your autopilot for. You can use heading mode all by itself if you don't care about your altitude, or if you want to be able to use the yoke to adjust your altitude. Then you can just turn on heading mode, or you can turn on heading mode with the altimeter mode on as well.
Okay, so that means I go to this panel again. So here, that now it changed to the GPS. That's mean navigation, right?
Yep. That's the way that we have it selected to navigate. Is
Okay.
we're not doing heading anymore. We're doing GPS, and then it should still say autopilot, and then it should still tell you the altimeter that we're holding at.
Okay.
So see now you notice how we've leveled off because it's at 8,100.
Oh,
Job's done. Vertical speed turns off. Altimeter hold comes on, and now it's going to continue to fly 8,100 feet.
okay. And so that means now it is a in autopilot mode, GPS tracking. Autopilot is on. Altitude is 8,100 feet. So if I turn off the altitude ALT, then the
That will disappear up there at the top.
that will disappear, but still the GPS and autopilot will
Yep.
be work.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
I need to control the altitude.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And then if you hit the autopilot button, it's going to turn everything off, and then now you're back in full control of the plane.
Okay, so if I cancel the autopilot, it will turn off everything, like including GPS and ALT.
Yeah, and then you're gonna be flying the plane by hand at that point. You know,
Okay, okay, okay.
you're gonna be responsible for the pitch up and the pitch down and everything.
So
The
that
way that you've
means
been playing. You know.
definitely need to be AP and then the add-on which I want.
I no. Why I usually you want to tell it the mode before you turn the autopilot on, because if you forget to click the head, let's say you're gonna use heading mode, but you forget to click the heading knob first so that it centers it on where your plane is headed right now, and let's say it's directly behind you. If you turn the autopilot on, the plane's going to immediately start to turn around and go back the other way.
Okay,
Because
okay, okay, yes.
that's where the little heading crown is, you know?
Oh, yes. So, oh, one thing.
So
Oh,
you always want to pick the mode of how you're going to navigate with the autopilot before you turn the autopilot on. So you would want to, you know, you would want to get your altitude plugged in. You would want to get
Altitude.
your navigation mode, like heading or
Heading.
GPS. Get all that stuff clicked first, and then turn the autopilot on.
So if it was a heading and if I click on the navigation, see its heading will be automatically cancelled and replaced with navigation.
Uh-huh.
And
Then it doesn't matter where you have that little blue heading crown, because you're not telling it to navigate to that. You're telling it to follow what the GPS route is.
so in this what is called heading, the purple is in the middle now.
Yep.
Before it was on the left hand side. Okay. That means we are on the flight path.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Lots of things to learn.